Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and I score them based on the store pages. Also, a happy 250th for the sake of democracy. That's right, this is on the 4th of July weekend, which for most of the world doesn't mean jack shit. But for here in America, this means the birthplace of democracy as we know it today. And for people who might not know me, that's being a little bit tongue in cheek here. Anyway, this week we are looking at Helldivers 2 from Arrowhead Game Studios. Now, this game released in 2024, February 2024, is showing on the Steam page here, has been the focus of a lot of memes and gags and jokes that, quite frankly, have pervaded a little bit of social media feeds around the time of its release when people were really enjoying it. I haven't seen a whole lot of it recently, but I don't necessarily think that that means that it's fallen out of favor. It's just that, other things take up that sphere of influence. But considering what this weekend is and what it represents, I thought this would be an incredibly accurate and meaningful time to take a dive into Helldivers and see what we are in for. Now, I know a lot of times we'll go ahead and start with the trailers and then move on to the descriptions, but I'm actually going to go ahead and flip things around today while we look into this. And before we do, I did take a brief look into Arrowhead Game Studios. They are also responsible for a couple other game titles, including the original Helldivers and another game, Magica, from 2011, which seem to have kind of a similar gameplay style with a bit of a top-down multiplayer, but in that case with like a fantasy and magic setting as opposed to sci-fi and planetary conquest. Anyway, here we go, looking into Helldivers to go ahead and get started into what they have to say about their game. Now, we're going to go ahead and scroll past the buying options and all that for now. We'll come back to that later. And they do have a digital deluxe edition, which we will go into more detail later, but they start off telling us, what it includes. There's an armor set, a cape, a weapon, super citizen status, stratagem hero ship game, which sounds like a kind of like an in-game or like maybe some kind of an arcade game type of thing. Based on the picture here, it does look like a little, futuristic arcade cabinet and a premium war bond token, which we'll get into all of that later on as well. I did have to do a little digging to see what all that was about to begin with. So, about this game, the galaxy's last line of offense. Enlist in the Helldivers and join the fight for freedom across a hostile galaxy in a fast, frantic, and ferocious third person shooter. Urgent broadcast: Super Earth Armed Forces. Freedom, peace, democracy. Your Super Earth born rights. The key pillars of our civilization, of our very existence. But the war rages on and everything is once again under threat. Join the greatest military force the galaxy has ever seen and make this a safe and free place to live. Which is quite some messaging. Like, it feels very. For this to be the store page, it sounds like military recruiting. And I do understand that that is the point. The developers are being very tongue in cheek with this. It's kind of giving Starship Trooper vibes, the movie Starship Trooper vibes, where it's portrayed as this is the bastion of freedom and protection for your people and the galaxy, when really, based on the imagery, we are the hostile invading force. Become a legend. You will be assembled into squads of up to 4 Helldivers assigned strategic missions. Watch each other's back. Friendly fire is an unfortunate certainty of war, but victory without teamwork is impossible. You've got your loadouts: rain down freedom from above, sneak through enemy territory, or grit your teeth and charge headfirst into the jaws of combat. How you deliver liberty is your choice. You'll have access to a wide array of explosive firepower, life-saving armor, and battle-changing stratagems, the jewel in every Helldiver's arsenal. We have requisition. Super Earth recognizes your hard work with valuable requisition. Use it to access different rewards that benefit you, your squad, your destroyer ship, and our overall war effort. Threats. Everything on every planet wants you dead. That is what we're dealing with. Each enemy has distinct and unpredictable characteristics, tactics, and behavior, but they all fight ferociously and without fear or mortality. I wonder if that was supposed to be fear of mortality? I don't know. It seems like that would have been a better string of words. The Galactic War, capturing enemy planets, defending against invaders, and completing missions will contribute to our overall effort. The world will be won or lost depending on the actions of everyone involved. We stand together or we fall apart. So they are definitely leaning heavily into framing this as a military recruitment. The store page is designed to get that evocative nature and messaging to the player. Now, if this were an actual military recruiting thing, it would be very much propaganda. But the way that it's delivered here, we can tell that with a little bit of reading lens going on here, we can tell what they're going on with this, or at least I think we can tell what's going on with the messaging and how they are definitely painting this to be a, like I said, that propaganda angle. And they want us, the players, like it's so blatantly obvious that that is what's going on that it comes off that that is absolutely the intent. The way they talk about super Earth and liberty and democracy and bringing freedom to worlds while you are literally blowing them apart, like it's pretty clear that we are the alien invaders in this situation because hell yeah, democracy, baby. The way that it's described, I don't know. Now, I don't know if there are going to be people out there that don't quite get that tongue in cheek angle with it, but it does seem kind of clear that that is the point they're going with. Now, when we get to the trailers, we do have a total of 5 trailers here that have a bit of a varied messaging to them. We do get these from PlayStation Studios because originally the game was PlayStation and now PC as well. We do have them going with a little bit of the updates where most of the imagery leading up to this so far has been about invading these bug alien planets. But it turns out that in addition to all of that little like propaganda, like recruiting propaganda that we also have our first trailer leading in with an update about Cyberstan and basically invading or reclaiming what seems to be a kind of separatist faction from the humans, where you're dealing with mechanical people, cyborg people that probably seceded for the sake of wanting to be free themselves. But of course, we, as the purveyors of liberty and super democracy, cannot let that stand. We must bring them back into the fold or obliterate them if they refuse. Uh, they it is kind of cool that they do go and show that you are going in and taking in like these extra enemy types, new enemy types, new tactical needs to go through them, new settings, especially because we do see that this one is kind of set in these futuristic cyberpunk looking cities as you're blowing them apart. But that's kind of a cool angle. The only thing I don't like about this part of the store page and its organization is that this update is the first trailer. Now, granted, that does mean that this is going to be like the most recent content for you to engage with, especially when playing with other people. But it does seem to kind of I just commonly have this issue where an update trailer is the front running trailer when I would think that, an actual game trailer should be the first thing. And that's what our second trailer seems to be giving us. Another, 100 minute 25 trailer here that gets into some more of the core game, again going into the wasteland like bug planets of your Helldivers going in, dropping onto the planet and taking on the swarms of enemies, taking out their nests, taking out whatever kind of brood situations we have going on here. And there are a fair variety of creature types that we can see as we go about this. Now, there are even flying enemies, which honestly makes it feel a little Monster Hunter esque which is not a bad thing. I do kind of get a bit of Monster Hunter vibe, less in the sense of where you are taking the monster parts to craft your weapons and armor like you do in those games, but in the sense that you are dealing with some massive enemies that are kind of akin to boss fights where the point is to try and take them out in groups. But of course, you also have this interplanetary ordinance to combat them with these stratagems that they tease in the description. And they definitely still play these trailers up, still leaning in on that Starship Troopers like military propaganda engine. Now, after those first two trailers, we do move on to the whole collection of screenshots. We do have a handful of them. And the screenshots do a decent job of showing some of the environments. We do see some lush forested environments, the lighting and everything going in here. We do see some of the wastelands, still frames of some of those bug like monstrosities that we go in. We can even probably try and compare them to some real world bugs. The ordinances coming in, fighting against these or at least I think this is fighting, considering that this thing is using a flamethrower towards our Helldiver. I'm guessing that that's an enemy, a mechanical enemy, so we do have those things going on. This one does appear to be, possibly raiding another one of these cyborg settlements. We do have some snowy wasteland going on here. Um, Freaking missile silo that almost feels a little StarCraft-esque with the nukes and the ghosts. Um, this is all just kind of a little point of comparison. We have deserts with more desert bugs. We have more like open fields. Now, there is a lot of haze and cloud going on here. I'm wondering if that's like an intentional thing to try and like limit the draw distance so that you can focus on the action here, which, that kind of using that haze to hide background so you don't have to render too far back could also be like maybe a little performance enhancing means, just that they kind of hide with the environment a little bit. More of these just massive explosions. They lean so freaking heavily into those explosions and the look of it. Now, finally, we do get to our last three trailers where they do and go into an actual recruiting ad style presentation for some of these pre-release and pre-order hype trains that they're trying to put on here, where they tell us take back control and freedom. They have the characters posing for the camera with the explosions and the creatures in the background, even cutting out the tragic scream of one of your actors getting blown apart by some bug. And ultimately, the trailers, I think, are doing a serviceable job here. They are getting the point, the tone, and the gameplay down as far as you, the player, would be concerned. Like getting an idea of the kind of action that you are going to be getting into for this game. They don't tell us a whole lot about menus or organization. We don't see a lot of that going on, which for a game like this where the point of it is the action, I imagine the menu loadouts probably are not as intense or as detailed as you would expect from like games full of item crafting and RPG mechanics. Although your weaponry, you will have to try and juggle your weapon stats, perks, all of that kind of thing when it comes to these sorts of things, especially when you have a variety of weapons for different loadouts and strategies. I would imagine it also being kind of similar in that regard to, say, Splatoon, where when you're in the heat of battle, like when you're actually in the campaign, you're not paying attention to all the you're not browsing menus and stats and numbers. That's all done in the prep stage, but those things do still exist. So it would be kind of nice if we could see some of that. Let's see. We get trailer number 4, which goes into another one of these, not less in the angle of a recruitment style ad and more along the lines of the actual action of the game. And again, just lots of action, and every single one of these trailers really focuses on that angle, along with portraying that, these are straight up advertisements, trailers. You get your weapon of choice, you get crossplay with this. Now, and this is the trailer that actually boasts the crossplay. It shows some of the technical side of things where it's like, yes, you are going to be able to play with both PlayStation and PC friends. You don't have to get everybody all on the same console like you do with some other games or some other platforms that might not have the crossplay available. And then finally, the last trailer is a word from the developer, including the CEO of Arrowhead Game Studios himself, talking about their intent behind it, going into some of the detail. And it does seem like, they more of the same style of footage. So we're getting these 5 different trailers, each one from a different point in the game's development. Like we have the release trailer, we have 2 pre-release trailers, we got the CEO monologue, and we have an update trailer with the cyborg faction going on. So we do see different points of the messaging, but overall the trailers do appear to be largely giving us the same kind of information. We do see the actual deployment of some of these stratagems with the Helldivers throwing like the little signal beacon that goes back to the mothership to bring it whatever it is you're supposed to be calling in. And they do highlight that you have to deal with the friendly fire if you're going to drop one of these things. If you're going to drop one of these stratagems for heavy interstellar ordnance, that maybe make sure your friends are clear of the fray. A lot of information coming out here. I do recommend anybody that is interested to go ahead and look into this. Take a look at it yourself. We do have more detail to go into than I would want to dedicate time here, because ultimately, I think a big part of the game is not just the. It's not just about the gameplay itself. It's about the message and tone that it sends that really resonates, I think, with what we see in our modern messaging and modern culture and how propagandized it is, where they glorify this, they glorify freedom, democracy, and liberty. Like they use those buzzwords to draw you in, or rather to draw in their in-universe recruits, when actually they are basically obliterating and colonizing these worlds, taking out the local life in order to set up whatever it is that their agenda is for Super Earth. And the fact that they do drop the word super in front of basically everything surrounding this game. You've got Super Earth, Super Democracy, some other kind of super credits to deal with your currency system and everything for that you earn through your gameplay. It's it's a lot to go into, and it does feel kind of heavy given what our modern climate is for anybody that's, looking here again. Happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. Right. Um that's I feel like the developers were sending a message with this one, and it's not just a message that is unique to 2024, because again, this is not the first Helldivers. This is Helldivers 2. The first one came out 8 or 9 years before this and very much had that same tone, even if maybe less intense, since it was more of a top-down co-op shooter kind of situation going on and all of that. So I don't know. There's a lot in there with the messaging and how they want to present it, that it it comes off very intentional, and anybody with a couple of brain cells to rub together, I feel like, is going to see that and get the point of that. Um, how much the game leans into its lore with any kind of storyline or campaign is kind of hard to see. But at the same time, as the player, I can see if maybe the game wouldn't even lean so much into that, like as far as the narrative of it, considering that the point of the game is you are playing as an extremely expendable soldier. That's the kind of vibe that it's getting here. You are an expendable soldier that is just dropped on a planet, and you are basically expected to die. Whether you succeed in your mission or not, it's there's no certainty that your player character in any single specific dive is ever actually going to, come back alive. Uh, how much you go in and, actually help your team or the overall mission, it's kind of up in the air on that one. And seeing like I do wonder how the gameplay goes. Like if you die on a mission, do you respawn in? Is a respawning in played off as another diver dropping to the surface? Or are you basically out of the mission and you have to go in and queue up for another one or something? It doesn't really mention that in the trailers or the store description. I could see either system working, narratively speaking. Either you're just out of the mission for good, or you drop in because, quite frankly, it would feel bad to just get knocked out of a mission if you die early. But you still want to play with your friends, even if it's not as the same player character. It's just they're gonna have multiple soldiers up there in orbit waiting to drop in with maybe the same weapon loadout and same options, because there's gonna be tons of actual hypothetical soldiers in universe characters in order to do these missions. Now, to go ahead and break down our thoughts on the game itself, I know we talked a little bit about the tone here. Let's mention the graphics. The graphics do look good. Maybe not the most like hyper realistic. I do see like it does feel a little scattered in there, but it might just be a little bit of the rendering. Between the screenshots and the trailers, it does look like they use some haze and fog to hide the distant landscape, so that it doesn't have to animate or render too far out from your position. Now, I could see that being a little bit of a negative, but overall, I think it works in this case because when you're in these tense battle scenarios, one, you're more focused on the close up action where you have to worry about the things that are right in your face trying to rip it off, then you're worried about seeing the beautiful landscapes. Now, that's not to say that the landscape doesn't have a kind of charm and elegance to it. It's just that there's going to be a lot going on distracting you from that, so that you don't necessarily have time to appreciate how much goes into the environmental detail. On top of that, again, you are in a very hostile situation. There's explosions and dust and smoke getting blown all over the place. That is also going to naturally obscure things. So having this kind of first or third person viewpoint of a fog of war that is blinding you from long range view, it does make sense that all of that is going to obscure your view and keep you focused on things that are close up to you, where maybe you can't necessarily see things that are coming at you from a longer range. The sound is covered with a lot of explosions, and I didn't quite get a big taste of the music going into the trailers. Now I know I do have the computer audio turned down while I do these recordings, so we're not getting a lot of it on the review. But they do lean a little bit into that high action octane situation going on, but not so much to the point of like, yeah, not something that maybe I'd listen to out of game, but it does at least carry the tone and the intent behind your setting at the very least. Now, gameplay. The gameplay, quite frankly, I have nothing bad to say about the gameplay. We do see in the trailers, even in short snippets, that there are parts where it says, not actual gameplay because they are the rendered cutscenes. But then we do see, for example, oh, we have one on screen right here with some of the gameplay. We have your different weapons showing here with your ammo counts showing. So you have everything in the UI. You have this compass at the top of your view here, which for high tech situations, I would imagine your helmet is going to have that built-in compass going on. You have these little enemy indicators. I'm guessing the green marker is our friend right over, or no, the green marker would obviously be this A4 over here in the distance. This C1 over here does appear to be an ally, shown in orange, maybe. It does appear to be an like they're wearing the same kind of armored uniform that our perspective Helldiver is, and then a bunch of yellows here. They may be like maybe that's an enemy cluster off in the distance. I don't know. These are kind of guesses based on what we're seeing in the UI, and we also see the stratagem up here at the top, shown with an icon. Now, obviously, I don't have the insight to know what this symbol is, but anybody who's playing the game, you're going to be getting a quick taste of that. I don't even know if there's going to be a tutorial or anything, but it even shows us, the little 8 icon on there. That if you're playing mouse and keyboard, I imagine the 8, that's your hotkey for it. So they do show us that little bit of the user interface on the battlefield going on here, where this, I would presume that this is going to be your squad mates, the A4, the D2, and the C1. Interesting that it shows those the instead of actually showing like player names. Although considering that you are also, again, you are this faceless, nameless soldier for the army dealing with all of this. So that then maybe giving the players names to display on screen isn't even that important, or maybe this is just part of the promotional material because maybe the devs when they were recording this didn't actually give themselves real names. They gave themselves all like letter number codings. That's also entirely possible. But the gameplay, again, it does look solid going in here. We see them. We do have the indicators of, weapon, ammo going on for your teammates, bug breach detected. We've got all of that information going in here for the gameplay, in addition to just kind of getting this excellent taste of exactly the kind of action you're in for. And quite frankly, a game that is all about this action, for it to not display that would have been a huge disservice to this process. So we do see all of that going on. I don't recall seeing a lot of the UI and menu situation that happens outside of the battlefield, like what goes on in there. Although I did take a brief look at the DLC. What is it for the Helldivers 2 Ultimate, the Super Citizen Edition, which you can either purchase as a bundle or as a separate upgrade. Although it does say that it is unlisted on the Steam store and doesn't appear in the search, so you'd have to like find it on the Helldivers page directly. It does show not screenshots there, and it gives. Okay, so the DLC page is actually giving the same information as the base page, and then just telling us, what you get with it. I did have to do a little bit of separate digging to figure out what exactly the Savior of the Free Armor set and the MP98 Night Weapon actually entails. In fact, what I didn't hit was checking to see what super citizenship status means. I imagine maybe that's like an extra tier of rewards for your season, for the season rewards or anything, if they're doing it on that kind of a model. Which when we get to the pricing, we'll go ahead and see a little bit of that. Anyway, speaking of pricing, we do need to get down to that pricing so that we can discuss this part. Now, this is where it's going to get a little complicated, because this one I didn't see a whole lot of it on Steam. I had to look off of Steam in order to get some of this information. So Steam store page tells us Helldivers 2 full price is $40, currently on sale for a quarter off. So you're paying $30 to $29.99 for Helldivers 2 if you're in the market for picking it up. This is a sale time like this would be a good time for that. So, but still, $40 full price, which based on what we're seeing, and considering that the Cyborg update appears to be an actual update to the game itself, not a separate paid DLC, that $40 does seem to have its value to it. And considering that the Cyborg update is also fairly recent, like they are still actively putting out updates. They're celebrating the community on Friday, July 3rd, because of course they are celebrating the community for Super Democracy on the weekend of 250. Hell yeah, American birthday. Machinery of Oppression. So the Machinery of Oppression thing, that one's also very recent. So June 16th. So they are still like putting out active updates for not just small add-ons, but for full-blown content for the game that is not part of a paid bundle. The paid bundle we have is this Helldivers 2 upgrade to Super Citizenship Edition that like I said, it does appear that it is here as, in fact, it doesn't even look like it's part of a separate purchase. The only thing I see here for it is a bundle purchase option. So if you want the Super Citizenship Edition, I'm not sure that you can even get it separately, or if you can, you might have to do it through Helldiver's own website. But it's not showing up on Steam as a separate purchase. The only Steam option I'm seeing for it is this bundle option. Now, full price, it is $60, but again, it is also part of that 25% off sale, so you could get it for $45, the $44.99 for that price, which for the game itself, I could see the $45, like the $60, that's kind of pushing my taste for the budget a little bit. But $45, I could see that as a worthwhile price for the base game with the Super Citizenship Edition if we take a look at what comes in it. Now, here's one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of. So you get a Savior of the Free armor set and an MP98 weapon, and then a couple of cosmetics. You get a Will of the People cape, Super Citizenship status, whatever that means, and the Stratagem Hero ship game. So basically, you get like a little in universe arcade game, cosmetic cape, an armor set, and a weapon, which are not purely cosmetic. They actually have their own stats and perks attached to them. The super citizenship status does sound kind of like a premium kind of thing for it, which that was one of the first things that had me questioning. Okay, what are we looking at here as far as something that sounds premium? And you get a premium Warbond token. So I had to go and look into what exactly is the Warbond token, because the Steam page does not tell us what the Warbond token is, and we don't have anything here telling us what that is. What we do have on here is there was a note in here about in-app purchases. This is what kind of flagged me as like, okay, wait a minute. How much am I going to be looking at this? So it appears that in addition to the $40 to $60 price tag that they're asking you to pay for this, there is also in-game currency. Now, you get some in-game currency by doing missions and by playing the game, but you can also purchase the in-game currency with real money, kind of like how Fortnite has with its V-Bucks. And honestly, that for a game that is already being pushed and sold as a full price game, where you have your $40 base price or $60 for a bonus weapon, bonus armor, and like a little bit of prestige item for shelling out the extra money. The fact that you can go in and purchase extra in-game currency for $2, $10, or $100 for the in-game currency, that leaves a huge sour taste in my mouth. Like that very much gives the vibes of the freemium games of like the mobile markets, where they give you a little bit of free gameplay to entice you, but because the game is free, you might not feel bad about shelling out a couple of little microtransactions. But the fact that this is a $40 to $60 game, also charging for those microtransactions. Now, you can ignore those microtransactions. Like I said, you can do the missions and get some of that in-game currency naturally. It does appear, and it appears that the war bonds are additional like in-game missions and tasks that you can do for extra equipment and stuff like that. It appears. And the fact that the premium edition does give you a Warbond token. So basically, you can get one of those Warbonds for free, but otherwise, you have to purchase the Warbonds with that in game currency that you can also buy for real money. I get that you don't have to spend the real money on it, but the fact that you can spend $100 all at once for that in-game currency, it leaves a very sour taste in my mouth. It, like I said, it feels very much like they're going in the mobile market now. On a narrative scale, I could see that leading into the kind of tone and messaging of the game with the whole super democracy and liberty and freedom situation. But at the same time, that messaging should just be a part of the game and hopefully not something that bleeds into the game and developers monetary structure, into how they monetize their game. Now I do understand developers got to get paid, that people got to get paid for their work, that is completely understandable, but in a way that sells the full price game and then has that degree of microtransaction on top of it, I feel like it would be less offensive if maybe the war bond was, instead of that kind of thing, if they made it just a straight up like DLC where you can buy like a bundle, if there was like, a 10 or $20 perk where it's like, you pay this $10 or $20 season pass price and you get like the next year's worth of war bonds. Okay, that doesn't feel as bad. But when it's tied to an in-game currency that you could spend on whatever kind of, I don't know, potentially loot boxes, potential cosmetics, bonus armors and stuff, or other unlockables, the way you do in Fortnite, or even if it's just for skins. I feel like if it's just for skins, it's even worse because that's just a cosmetic thing. But that's how Fortnite does. But Fortnite is a free game for everybody, whether you and it's your choice whether you want to buy things or not to get whatever bonus seasonal skins. That nothing has a gameplay advantage over in that. In this one, you does seem that you are getting actual exclusive equipment for purchases that feels like it leans a lot more heavily into that fear of missing out that games could go. And honestly, that's the part of this that leaves a very sour taste in my mouth, especially when they're asking for $40 to $60 for the game, and even at a discount, $30 to $45 for the game. And because of that, I think it's really going to affect our impression of the game, despite how great it looks and how great the store page is presenting its game. Now, pricing aside, like I said, the game does look incredible. It looks like fun. It looks like the exact kind of game where you could pick up and team up with absolute randoms and have a hell of a good time, or get a squad of friends together and have an even better time while you got your Discord chat going over your headset and trying to coordinate that way. You can have a lot of fun with that, just taking out planets full of hostile enemies, because quite frankly, that game, it is a fun gameplay loop. Just being able to do that with different weapons, coming up with different combinations, different group dynamics, and how you go about that, or random, like again, teaming up with random people and just not knowing what you're getting into. The chaos of the battlefield like that can also be a very engaging part of the game. It's just the pricing that really hurts it, I think. The game, now the store page in the game does have incredible potential for messaging in how it presents itself as like this military recruitment propaganda that is done so blatantly, that it's tongue in cheek. But the pricing really kills it when that super democracy, hyper capitalist profit engine bleeds into its monetization structure. And I think ultimately that hurts the experience. And because of that, I am going to end up giving Helldivers 2 on the Steam store page a 5 out of 10. Now, like I said, the game itself looks incredible. I can see $30 or $40 being a perfectly reasonable price for the game itself. The Super Citizen Edition, I could see that $15 to $20 price the extra price tag of that being worth it if it is like, a permanent upgrade on your account. It's not the worst thing to ask for. It's kind of like a little like longevity supporter pack, but at the same time, it seems that supporter pack does come tied to exclusive content that now, since it is a co-op game and not a competitive game, I could see maybe a little bit of paid stuff being less intrusive with the armor and weapon that you get. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like those kinds of supporter packs are less offensive when it just gives you a little bit of a cosmetic flair to be like, yeah, I gave the extra support to the developer because I really like this game. I really like their dedication to their project or to their work. Um, but again, this one is one that does have equipment exclusive to that paid experience so that if you don't make that extra payment, you could miss out on some strong meta picks for your character loadouts, depending on how that. Now, whether or not it actually does, again, I have not played this game. I don't know if that does. But from experience across other games and seeing the marketing and the messaging in different structures behind game monetization, I have seen situations where the paid bonus is, or the paid content, that additional price tag is definitely some pay to win stuff that you feel like the player, feel like you're missing out if you don't shell that out. And the fact that a bunch of those other purchases are only in game, they do not, like, the Steam page here does not have the in-game currency for you shown here. So the Steam page is also not as transparent as I have seen other games with microtransactions. I have seen microtransactions on Steam. If I recall, back in the day when I was playing Path of Exile through Steam, you could get the Path of Exile in-game currency on your Steam account. And I don't think it didn't even cost more than it did in game. It was just straight up there. You buy it through Steam and it goes into your Path of Exile login when you're playing through your Steam account. This one doesn't even give you that. They don't tell you the Steam store page is not telling you what the war bonds are, what the war bonds offer. I had to go outside of Steam to find what is going on with this. Now, it does say that we do also know that the game is on PlayStation, and a lot of that is going to be more transparent on PlayStation, considering that PlayStation Publishing LLC is the publisher. So this is like a very in-house product or in-house project, even though it is done by Arrowhead Game Studios. They are tied very close to PlayStation with that. So I imagine on PlayStation's Play Store, it is probably a lot more transparent what all of that is going to entail. But the fact that so much of that messaging is missing here on Steam and that you don't even see what the cost of any of that is without looking outside of Steam, it does kind of hurt the impression that I'm getting from the Steam store page. So again, because of that, I am giving Helldivers 2 as it is presented on the store page a 5 out of 10. And it does have points for looking like a great game and looking like a good value of experience for $45. But the fact that it is missing out on that messaging, it it just hits the wrong way that that much is missing from it. Now, that is to say that is, again, this is just my impression of Helldivers 2 as presented on the Steam store. The fact that it just has that lacking microtransaction information is the biggest deterrent here, on top of the fact that it has those microtransactions in the first place. Now, I could see myself spending $30 to $40 if I know that, I've got some buddies I'm going to jump in with and play this more than a couple of times in my life. I could see enjoying the experience immensely. But the monetization structure just kind of has me side eyeing it a little bit of like, Mm, come on. It does feel a little extra American for it to be done that way. Now, that said, there is another thing I noticed with the Helldivers situation outside of Helldivers 2. Since we gave Helldivers 2 our rating, and of course, if you think I'm full of shit or if you have your own criticisms, let me know in the comments below because like I said, the game does look genuinely amazing. It looks fun. It looks rewarding. I don't want that part of the messaging to get overshadowed by my critique of the monetization. It looks like the kind of game that I would not mind spending 30 or $40 on purchasing. I just would not I would not want to support the extra fees on top of that. Now that said, on top of Helldivers 2, there is also the original Helldivers on Steam, which you can like they have the thing up at the top. You can go through Arrowhead Game Studios to find it. And this game, I found it kind of interesting because it's the same tone, the same kind of message, except instead of that third person view, you have this top down twin stick shooter setup. We do see a lot of the same stuff, and I'm not going to go and give this one a formal score. I just wanted to go ahead and highlight this as something in case somebody else is out there thinking that Helldivers 2 is too expensive for their budget and their time, or they don't like the monetization structure of it, but you still like the universe and the gameplay, there is this other option. Helldivers is $20 full price, but at the time of this video is on sale for $4. And not only on sale for $4, it has a fair chunk of DLC for extra content that is also on sale, and you can get the whole set for $8, which honestly, for a game that is going to have, the same kind of gameplay just from the different perspective and the different outlook and everything, I could see that being a very worthwhile $4 to $8 experience, considering, again, it is that co op gameplay style. And if you have friends that you would like to play this kind of game with, this would be a way to go ahead and get more people potentially on board because most people are going to be very willing to drop $4 or $8 for even just a weekend of playing with the fellas. Whereas the $30 to $40 price tag, that's going to be more of a kind of, hey, we want to get together like, every week or every other weekend for a while to play this and kind of get the most out of the experience for the money spent on it. But the overall, oh, and on top of that, the screenshots even show more UI and more menus, which honestly is favorable for for Helldivers 1, and the fact that it only comes with the one trailer to go through. Anyway, I'm not doing a full rating of base Helldivers. I just wanted to go ahead and highlight this, that this is an option. And oh, includes 14 items. Okay, so the Helldivers Reinforcements Mega Bundle also has something for $5. Go ahead and take a look at the bundles if that's the kind of thing. But that's that's just the position that we have here for the game. Honestly, I could see myself buying and playing the hell out of the first Helldivers for that price tag. Like, I would even go right now and drop that $8 for it, even if I don't know if any of my other friends are going to be buying it. But the Helldivers 2, like I said, you guys that are out there playing it or who have played it, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your impressions of it, of the game, the monetization, and the community. Like, it's that monetization that has me the most skeptical to look at it in too positive a light. But I don't want it. I don't want that criticism to overshadow how good the game looks as a $30 to $40 game in its own right. And if I can get some confirmation on the game itself being good and being fun and being rewarding, where hopefully there's not too much of a FOMO situation. And who knows, maybe the in game currency, maybe they give you enough of that in game currency just by playing so that you don't really need the microtransactions. And the extra purchases is just a way to kind of get it faster if you don't want to do that grind. But if the grind is overly painful, like if it costs 1,000 credits and you only get like 5 to 10 per mission or something, I could see that grind being a little unbearable and kind of overly incentivizing the actual microtransaction side of things. I'd like a little confirmation on how the microtransactions and the in-game currency is scaled. And really, I feel like I can go and do some research into that, but I feel like the most accurate portrayal is going to come from people who are in that community and how the community overall has responded to it. Because a game like this, it does foster community since teamwork is a huge part of the focus. So if there's anybody out there who does see this, let me know what you guys think because again, I have my criticisms here, but I I do I do like the look of the game itself. And I want to believe that the microtransactions, because of how tongue in cheek the store description and the trailers are, I want to believe that the microtransactions are also kind of tongue in cheek with that. It's just that the fact that those microtransactions do exist, even if tongue in cheek, is it's still microtransactions. Now, again, remember, this review, these were my opinions. These were my personal thoughts. Everyone is going to have different thoughts and different tastes, and I respectfully welcome any criticism, any if there's any kind of contrary thoughts to what I'm saying, I welcome that. I don't hate other people's opinions, other people's thoughts. And again, like maybe there are going to be people out there who look at this and say that it's some trash, that maybe it's just not their style of game. Different people have different tastes, they like different gameplay, and I appreciate that. And honestly, it does, like I said, it does look like the kind of game I would personally have a lot of fun with, even as somebody who doesn't play a lot of these high intensity shooters. And it's less because of the type of game it is and more about the type of time I could have playing with people, which is always a fun, rewarding thing with the right groups of people. So, again, for those of you guys out there, let me know your thoughts. And happy 250th America. Fuck yeah. Guys, stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. And I know I did mention like how Helldivers. Oh, yeah, just very briefly. I know I talked about how the Helldivers, like in universe, it's pitched very much as propaganda. Like this hyper nationalistic propaganda for Super Earth and its people and its military. Let's try not to let that same kind of messaging work on us in the real world. Like in a fictional setting, it can be a fun thing to explore. There can be a lot of conversation to be had there. But when it comes to the real world, let's be aware of our surroundings and have a sense of humanity to the people around us. That I just wanted to make sure that that got out there. Anyway, everyone out there, thanks for listening. Happy, you know what? Not just a happy Independence Day for the US, but for every country out there that has their own independence celebration. Happy independence for all of you guys. I don't care where you came from. I don't care what your culture is, what your language is. I love you guys. Be safe.